Welcome to Under the Microscope. This series is brought to you by the Real Scientists Nano team. Our goal is to provide a platform where scientists can communicate their work and interact with the public. With that in mind, every week we introduce you to a scientist working in the field of materials and nanoscience.
Hello everyone. Today we have with us Vivian Tong, who is a higher research scientist at the National Physical Laboratory near London in the UK. Hi Vivian, how are you doing?
I'm okay, thank you. Yeah. How are you?
Wonderful. I'm good. I'm good. Excited to speak with you. So let's start with understanding your research. Could you explain your research to us in super simple words?
Okay, so my research is in electron microscopy. So the microscope I work with is called a scanning electron microscope. And I use it to look at kind of the microscale properties of materials, and in particular, I use a technique called electron backscatter diffraction. And in my research, I developed lots of new techniques for both measuring and interpreting this microscopy data. I guess if you wanted to simply, I make electrons dance. I look at, if I've got a piece of material, say that I want to study, I fire some electrons at it and see what comes back at me. And depending on the properties of the material, they will dance in different formations, and I basically take photos of that. And from the photos of the dancing electrons, if you like, I can tell stories about the life history of the material that I was looking at. And I looked at materials used in airplanes, in nuclear reactors, in drill bits and cutting tools, and in computers.
That's fascinating. That's amazing. That's wonderful. So it seems like we'll have a action-packed week when you're curating the Real Scientist Nano account. Which brings me to the next question, which is, what can the followers expect in the week that you will curate the account?
So I'm going to talk a lot about my research on electron microscopy, and a little bit about how I got into it and the other people around me who are doing lots of cool things with this as well. I'm also going to talk about stuff that I do in my spare time, things like STEM outreach and public engagement, about how I got into that, the people who encouraged me along the way, and why now I think it's really, really important. Also about, I guess, my hobbies, like I bake a lot, I crochet a bit, um, and how I get some science geeky things into that as well. I'm also going to talk about me as a person. So in particular, with my experiences with mental health and with religious faith. And towards the end of the week, I'll be talking about my experience of doing research when actually I know that sometimes my brain will just say no and refuse to cooperate. And I guess some ways in which my Christian faith informs the way I do research and process, I guess, information. So like, say, how I'm more aware of, say, confirmation bias in what I think is true, and how I process the information I get as well. Friday is also the beginning of Ramadan for Muslims around the world. So I guess I'll be sharing some thoughts, and I'm going to ask you guys for advice on how we can all, I guess, include each other's different faith practices in a research environment without either just completely silencing or suppressing them, or fighting about it at the same time. So that's what you're going to be hearing about me for this week.
That sounds like an amazing plan, and we are looking forward to having you on Real Scientist Nano. Thank you, Vivian, for speaking with us.
Thank you for listening. To know more about us, please visit our website realscientistsnano.org and follow us on Twitter at realsci_nano.